This tutorial will show you how to use Adobe After Effects to stabilize shaky video footage. Before we get started, let's go over some important information to keep in mind when you're stabilizing video footage. Let's say that you have a 10-minute video clip that's made up of 4 2.5-minute sections that each show a sunset from a different location. You can't just import the entire video clip into After Effects and then stabilize each 2.5-minute section separately for the 10-minute scene. When the scene changes, the tracking points will be different and it won't work. In this scenario, you would need to break down the video into the 4 2.5-minute sections, stabilize each section individually in After Effects, and then combine the 4 clips back together into a single video. Let's open a new After Effects project. Let's import some video footage to work with. You can do this 2 ways. The first option, you can click the File menu, Import, and then File. This will bring up the Import File window. In addition to importing the file this way, there's another method which is the method I use all the time, and that's simply to double-click in this pane here. As you can see, that again opens the File Import window. Now I'm going to select a video clip of the nuthatch that I just recorded that has plenty of camera shake in it. Select the file, and then click the Open button. We'll now drag the video clip from the middle pane on the left side of the screen to the bottom pane on the left side of the screen. Once we drag this to the bottom pane, we'll see the video clip open in the composition view. We now need to ensure that the motion tracking panel is open. By default, the workspace layout will be set to standard, which is how this is set now. Click the drop-down next to Workspace, and then select Motion Tracking. On the right side of the screen, we'll now see the Tracker panel. The Tracker panel is used to track and stabilize motion. You can use motion tracking to do many different effects, but we are only going to concentrate on stabilizing shaky camera motion. Let's stabilize the motion of this shaky video footage. On the Tracker panel, click the Track Motion button. Upon clicking this button, you will see a new item in the video workspace that is 2 white boxes with a cross all inside themselves. This is labeled Track Point 1. When we click this, we can see in the Tracker panel that it lists the name of the video next to motion source. Under this, it lists the trackers for the scene next to current track. If we click the drop-down, we can see that there is only one tracker in this scene. Let's change the drop-down next to Track Type and change it from the default of Transform to Stabilize. The track point is used to watch a specific spot in the video, and then track that point as it moves through the video. As it tracks the points, it keeps a log of where the point is in each frame of the video. After tracking is complete in the video, you can then use this tracking data to stabilize the video. In the middle of the Tracker panel, we'll see 3 options: Position, Rotation, and Scale. When you click the Track Motion button, it'll show the track point and select Position. This will use a single motion tracking point to stabilize the video from motion up and down, as well as left and right. Selecting just Position will give you a pretty good final product, but it will still look shaky if the video footage is rotating. Even if you're holding the camera level, the sides of the camera will take turns dipping slightly. This is rotation. When I stabilize video, I always select both position and rotation. When we click this, we can see that we get a second tracking point, labeled Track Point 2. This means we'll have to track 2 points instead of 1, effectively doubling the work, but we'll end up with a much higher quality final product. Before we can start tracking the footage, we need to pick the 2 points in the video that we're going to track. 1 point for Track Point 1 and 1 point for Track Point 2. For each box, we need to select a small portion of the video clip that is unique from all other areas of the video. The place that we choose needs to be of as high a contrast as possible. You don't want to choose between 2 shades of gray. Something that is black and white would be best. This part is important, And if you check for it, it will always save you a ton of time in the long run. You need to go through the entire video sequence and make sure that the points you plan on tracking show up completely in every single frame of the video. If it doesn't, you'll fail and have to start over. First, let's look through the video and find the most restrictive view in the video. Basically, we want to find the place in the video where it is zoomed in the most, or you can see as little of the scene as possible. We're trying to find the most restrictive scene because this is where we're going to find our track points. If the tracking points are in the most restrictive scene, then they'll definitely be in the track in the normal parts of the scene. To watch the video clip, you can use the preview panel. You can also use the spacebar to play and pause the video clip. If you prefer not to watch the entire clip and you want to just browse through it, you can move the time marker around the timeline. Now we can see as we move through the video that with the shaky footage, maybe 20% around all sides should not be used, so we want to select somewhere in the middle of the video. Now this bird is stationary for the most part, but when we get towards the end where it flies away, we'll see that as the bird's flying away here, it covers up this branch, and actually the branch above it with its wings. So we wouldn't want to select, this piece of lichen here, for instance, and we wouldn't want to select something just above the bird that was visible in an earlier scene. Here. Like this seems like this would be perfectly fine, and maybe over here. But it does get covered up. So keeping that in mind, we'll use this as the most restrictive scene. Now let's select our two tracking points out of this frame of the video clip, keeping in mind the areas that we're going to exclude. Now if we look over on the left here, where these two branches come together at the sky, this would be an excellent point. There's very high contrast between the dark branches and the light sky. So we'll use that as track point 1. Now we could use the sky as a second tracking point somewhere up here if we wanted to, or even over here. But I find that you get better results the further apart from each other that you make the tracking points. Now on the right side, another good tracking point looks to probably be this little nub on the tree here, this little black piece that's sticking up. So we'll use that as tracking point number 2. Now it looks like we should be good for the whole video, but let's just slowly go through the video and just confirm that our two tracking points are in there for the entire video. Now we'll just go backwards. It gets close on the right, but it looks like it's there for the entire clip. Now if we wanted to, we could have tracked in the middle there, but we would have then had to have pulled back and then tracked in reverse. Now that we know where our two tracking points are, we'll just go back to the very beginning, and we'll track from that point forward. I find it difficult to work with the tracking points with the video on full size. It works best to zoom in a little bit. You can zoom in one of two ways. You can select a zoom level from the magnification ratio pop-up. You can also use the mouse wheel in and out, and that will zoom in and out. This is the preferred method that I use. With it zoomed in, we can move around by clicking the middle mouse button, holding and then dragging it around. If you don't have a 3-button mouse, as I don't, most mouse wheels can be pressed down like a button. When this button is pressed, you'll see the pointer turn into a hand. And you can then move the picture around. The track points can be moved around by clicking in either the inner box or the outer box, holding, and then moving it around. Make sure that you don't click on either of the boxes or you'll get undesired results. When we're moving this, we can see that the boxes turn into a single zoom box. This is useful to find the exact spot you're looking for with relative ease. Let's move track point 1 over to the first spot that we selected. I'll zoom out a little bit. Click the little middle mouse button down to move. If we want, we can adjust the size of the inside box to make it larger to select the entire portion we want to monitor. We can do this by clicking the edge of the box and making it larger. Let's move down to this spot. This looks a little higher contrast here. Now selecting here, I just made this box a little bit larger so that it would be monitoring this high contrast area here, and it would also bring into the picture these couple of light colored pixels here. This will make it very unique and make it easy to follow. Now that the inner box size is set correctly, we need to set the size for the outer box. Basically what After Effects does is look for the image found in the inner box within the region set by the outer box. We need to make sure that the box is large enough to cover the greatest movement in the video, from one frame to the next. By this I mean that the box needs to be large enough so that when it changes to the next frame, the image will not have moved so much that it can't be found in the outer box limits. Let's say that the next frame in this video moved enough so that the same point we are looking at in the video now, instead of being here, was, say, over here. We would then need to increase the size of the outer box to be able to find that center point movement from here. So to do that, we'll just click the outer box and make it larger. There's movement in this video, but not overly that much. If we start going and the tracking goes off, we can always stop and increase the size of the outer box. Okay, now it looks good for tracking point 1. Let's now set tracking point 2. You can see when I click track point 2, it highlighted with these little boxes. Now when I zoom, it zooms in on track point 2. Now let's go ahead and place track point 2. Alright, let's start the tracking process now. At the beginning, I like to start by analyzing the video a single frame at a time to make sure that it's working correctly. Let's click the Analyze One Frame Forward button. After Effects will now look within each of the track point boxes and compare the image in each one with the next frame in the video. It analyzes the next frame and finds the same point in that frame that was selected in the previous one. What the system does is look at the contents of the inner box and try to find that same image, or as close to it as possible, in the next frame within the outer box. When it finds a corresponding image, it places a tracking point on the video. It then repeats this process all the way to the end of the video. Now that we've analyzed one frame forward, we can see that the system has correctly found the right spot in the second frame, and it marked its location with a light blue dot. As the system analyzes the video, it'll add these points as an overlay on the video. If we want, we can zoom in on the video and make sure that the track point has correctly identified the next frame. Make sure that's selected. Mouse wheel, zoom in. And we can see that it's still on the tip there. Now we'll zoom back out, click with the middle mouse button, and drag to move the frame. Click to highlight the first track point, and then use the mouse wheel again to zoom in. And we can see again it found the correct point in this video. Zoom back out, reposition. Alright, so everything looks good, so we're good to move forward. Now let's go ahead and start analyzing the video forward. We'll want to keep a close eye on it to ensure that it's tracking correctly, especially at the beginning. At any point if we see the tracking go off its intended target, we'll need to stop the analysis, reposition the tracker, and then start analyzing again. So we're at the beginning of the video, so we'll go ahead and click the Analyze Forward button. And as we can see, the tracking boxes are following the intended targets. And we can see the original frame and the second frame as the blue boxes on the screen. Whenever you stop the footage, it will then add all the track points from the last time you started until that point. Stop it. Now the top box still looks okay, but it looks as though this one might have gone off the intended target. Let's zoom in. We can see that it did. The tracking point's over here a little bit, and we actually wanted it to be back here. So we can zoom back a bit, double it. Oh. We can see that everything was still fine in this frame, and then in this one it got confused. So all we need to do is go to the first frame that's wrong, and then we take and reposition, and then we just start analyzing forward again. You could just start right up. This may get confused again, so let's click the Analyze One Frame Forward button. Okay, it looks like that's still in the correct spot. So we'll zoom out a little bit so we can make both of the tracking points out, and we'll analyze forward again. Now the time it takes for your system to analyze each frame is going to vary from this. There we see it went off again. We can see that it went off track again. This time, track point 1 appears to be fine. It's track point 2 that's caused a problem. So we'll click on that to highlight it, then use the mouse wheel to move in. Use the middle mouse button to click on the mouse wheel and drag. Alright, we can see the intended point here. If we move back a little bit, this is the last time that it was on target. For whatever reason, it jumped down to this point. It doesn't, to me, appear anything like up here. Here we can see we have a little bit of like a corner of a box, and down here we have a straight line. But for whatever reason, it moved. So now that we're on the first frame that did that, again, we'll move this back to the original position. If we want to make sure that it lines up with the last one, we can click on the current time indicator. Move that back one frame. And we can see that still looks good. So now we can analyze one frame forward again, just to make sure this is where it's supposed to be. That looks good. We'll back out. Let's just zoom in to make sure this one still looks alright. It's got a little bit off target. Let's reposition this just a little bit. Zoom out again. And we can continue tracking. We'll analyze forward. Let's stop it again here. Everything still appears to be on target, but it gets kind of hard to see with this whole overlay here. So let's just zoom in on each one and just make sure that we're still on target. Still looks pretty good. They run for the most part, but it never hurts to stop and just tweak them slightly. It'll give you a better final product. We'll continue to analyze forward. The amount of time that it takes for your system to analyze each frame is going to vary. The more horsepower that your computer has, faster the processor, more memory and such, the faster these are going to analyze. The other part that comes into it is how large of an area you're actually watching, how high the contrast of that area is, and how large of a box you're looking for that area in. All that adds overhead that'll increase the amount of time. As you can see, none of this is a quick process. This is moving relatively quickly, and we're only 8 seconds into the video now. We're about halfway in the video. We haven't stopped for a while, so let's stop it again and just double check to make sure that we're on track. That one still looks good. A little bit of tweaking, and we'll go back, analyze forward. been a little while. We might as well stop again, just double check. Track point 2 looks on. Track point 1 is mostly on. And once we're set, we'll go back and click the Analyze Forward button. I don't know if you noticed back there, but it jumped off a little bit. So we'll click on track point 1 to select that, and we'll move in. Now if we slide back, see, it jumps over here for several frames. So we'll zoom back in again. Alright, this is the first one that's off. So we're going to go ahead and reposition that. I think it's about there. Now we'll move back one frame at a time. Now you can use this selector like I said before. If you prefer, you can use just the preview here. You can just say previous frame and next frame. I prefer the slider, so I think it's a little easier to work with. I'm just going to try and get a little bit of that white in the corner here. I think the tree repositioned a little bit, which is why it's not quite right. Okay, so this is the frame that I repositioned. We'll go ahead and analyze one frame forward. Okay, and that found the correct place. Now to make it a little bit easier, we should probably take and expand the size of the inner box slightly. This will add a little bit of processing, so it'll make it take a little bit longer, but it should find it a little bit easier, even if the tree shifts a little bit. Okay, let's analyze one frame forward again just to make sure. Okay, we'll pull out. Let's just go back and double check the second one again to make sure. Okay, still looks good. And we'll analyze forward again. And this video is actually a pretty good example because when you end up doing a lot of stabilization of videos from shaky footage, you'll be doing an awful lot of stopping, repositioning, and starting again. It's very rare that you'll have a good object or multiple good objects to be able to track for the entire scene. And there we are, we're at the end now. It's a good idea to save often. I didn't mention that before. Once we've completed analyzing, we need to apply the tracking information to the video. Let's click the Apply button. The Motion Tracker Apply Options window will open. In the drop-down menu for Apply Dimensions, you have the option to apply the motion tracking to both the X and Y axes, as well as the X or the Y only. This just deals with whether you want it to stop the shaking going left and right, or up and down, or both. This is a stable shot, so we want both. So we'll make sure X and Y is selected, and then click the OK button. Now we'll be able to see if we move the current time indicator through the timeline. We'll see that the video moves around to keep the footage stable. As it moves, we'll see the black edge appear on different sides. To keep the video stable but remove the black edges, we need to increase the scale or size of the video until we can't see them. We could just increase the scale until the edges are gone, but the larger you scale up the video, the lower the quality will be. To help reduce this, instead of increasing the video full size, we'll increase the size and then reposition the video. This makes it so you don't have to increase the size quite as large. To make it as easy as possible, I like to find the part of the clip that has the most black in it to start with. So again, we'll move back through the clip. That's pretty high there. Let's start with that clip. Now let's go down in the bottom left-hand pane of the window. Yours may not be expanded like mine is. Just click the arrows to close everything down. Here we can see the sub-menus for motion trackers, transform, and audio. Let's expand transform. We're going to adjust the scale. You can adjust the size in one of two ways. Option 1. You can click on the size and then while holding it, drag to the left or right to increase or decrease the size. Option 2. You can click on the size to bring up the option to edit the size. Just enter our new size and press enter. With the size of the video increased, let's move the position of the video around to remove the black edges. To reposition here, you left-click and drag. When it's where you want, centered here, then you release. Now let's move through the video some more until we can get to another place where we see the black edges. By moving back here, we can see the left edge a bit. So again, we can grab the video, reposition it to the left a little bit. All right, position this up. I think we're going to have to increase the size of this though. Let's move back and see if, yeah. So we'll increase the size of it. Now this is good. We went through the entire video and you can't see any of the black edges. You can go through this as much as you want and fine-tune it, where you decrease the size as minimally as possible and move it around so it's no larger than it has to be. That'll keep the highest amount of image quality there and give you the best final product. Once the video looks good in the preview, we then need to export the stabilized video to a format of our choosing. To do this, we'll click the Composition menu, then Make Movie. The render queue will open at the bottom of the window. First, let's select the type of file that we want to create by clicking the drop-down arrow by Output Module. Here we can see a list of all the available output format options. If there is a format that you want to use that is not listed, you can usually download a plugin to provide support. The video format of choice for HD on the web today is MP4 files. MP4 files are created using the H.264 or the H.264 codec. Let's click H.264 to select it. If we exported the video as it is now, the file would be created as nuthatch.mp4 in this last save location. This is the same as the input file name in the same location, so we can't do that. Let's click on the file name to edit the save location. Let's browse to the save location, which is going to be the same as our open location. We'll rename it to nuthatch_final. And then click the Save button. Now if we like for the output settings, we can click this Best Settings option here. And we can change additional settings if we choose. Once everything is the way that we want it, all we have to do is click the Render button. Now let's open up the saved location. Let's review the two files and see what we started with and then what our final product looks like. This is our starting video. We can see it's awfully shaky, but this was highly zoomed in, probably taken from around 50 feet or so. And the final product here. We can see there's still some movement, but that can be attributed to the movement of the wind in the tree branches. So it's much easier to look at now. The bird's not jumping all over the place. And that's it. You should now have the necessary knowledge to use the tracker panel on Adobe After Effects to stabilize shaky video footage.